I do have a plan that could bring every casino to their knees. And I may pull the trigger on this and watch these casinos burn. I might do that.
Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the betting show for UFC 272, a bad blood fight between Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington. We're going to be breaking that fight down, as well as another main card fight and the fade of the card. So we're going to get into all of that today. Excited to break this card down here. But we're coming off a 3-0 night last weekend on our client plays. 11.25 units earned for clients. It was a great showing. All plus money plays. If you want to see those write-ups, you can definitely go to wagertalk.com. See under my profile and under each fight, I have those extensive breakdowns that clients get prior to fights. So it was a great showing. Feeling good, man. Up over 30 units over the last 30 days. It's just been a great run for us here. And also this week, I have a 5% best bet play. 8-3 over the last 365 days. So got one out for this weekend. Excited about it. Plus a couple other plus money plays there too. We've been really finding some good spots there for those plus money plays here. So that's it. We're going to now get into the main card, the main event, and that's going to be between Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. And you've got Covington is a sizable favorite, minus 340. And on the other side, you've got Masvidal is plus 260. So 340 plus 260. Interesting line there, and we're going to dive all into that. And the way that we do this every show is we break down 3 fights for each fighter, see what we see if one fighter can expose the other fighter, and if the line makes sense to place a wager. So the first person we're talking about here is Colby Covington, and 3 fights ago he fought Kamaru Usman. Now this was an interesting fight here because this was another bad blood fight, and I kind of feel like Colby's got bad blood against everybody. But this was one here, and I'm not going to dive too much into it. I do have 3 fights to talk about today. But this was a fight here where I got to say that early in that fight, both of these guys they stood toe-to-toe. They were throwing big shots. They were both landing big shots. And this was a spot here where earlier in that fight, really it was Colby kind of dictating the pace, pushing forward, keeping that volume going. His boxing looked pretty crisp over there. And you know, Usman was trying, you know, and it almost looked like a glorified boxing match, to be honest with you. No one was shooting. Both guys pretty much, you know, it was all just a standing, striking, not too much, you know, kicking going on. Just a lot of shots. Body shots from Kamaru looked really good, started to really kind of pick up the pace. And going into the 3rd round is finally kind of where Kamaru kind of started to really dig in and start to find where the momentum was going his side. Earlier, I really liked what Covington was doing, and I think that he really thought if he pressed forward and pressed on the gas, he was going to be able to melt Usman. Usman was going to give way to that, and I think a lot of guys obviously have kind of give way to that. And you know, that heavy pressure, just the nonstop volume. And Usman has that as well too when it comes to cardio. He ended up lasting and pushing into later into that fight is really where Colby slowed down into that fight. I kind of had it a 2-2 going into that 5th round. It could have maybe arguably been 3-1 for Covington going to that 5th round. But either way, some really nice shots from Usman, really showing his evolving of his striking, landing some big shots, ended up getting the finish in the last round, a TKO victory for him there. So there you have it there. 2 fights ago, he fought Tyron Woodley. This fight here, not going to dive into this one much because this was just a lopsided performance here. Woodley was on the outs. This was another bad blood fight, but it was really just a one-way traffic coming from Covington, getting the takedowns, ground and pound, landing the shots. Woodley looked like he really was kind of lost, didn't have that explosiveness that we're used to overall. But he goes out there, uses the ground and pound, uses pressure, finds the finish at the end, and ends up getting the TKO victory in the 5th round against Tyron Woodley. And then most recently was part 2 of Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. And this one here we'll talk a little bit more about, is that this one here I thought really showed the evolving of Usman. I gotta say, I mean, I know that, you know, we're starting to kind of see that, and obviously we're gonna talk about Usman against Masvidal, but you really saw that he just seemed more comfortable, just in between the prior fight that he had with Woodley. I'm not sorry, with Woodley. Kamaru Usman had with Covington, God, I'm drawing a blank. With Covington, you saw the difference. You really saw the shift in just how good his striking really is, and just how much he has evolved. And I thought that was something that Covington didn't look that part. Now it could be really more on the lines of that Usman just really has elevated and he's using that range, setting up the combinations with his jab. Really, that long jab. We've seen what it did to Gilbert Burns. We've seen what he's able to do to Masvidal. We've really seen what he's able to continue to do. But not only that, but I love the way that he was able to really work in the strikes with the takedown defense. And he was able to do that because this was a spot here where you really saw Kobe pushing for those takedowns, pushing for those, level changing, pushing, mixing them in, shooting widely from the outside. And when Usman was looking to throw a strike and still was able to defend these takedowns, I like what he did there. And then you saw even a couple spots, I think it was the second or third round, dropping Covington. Looked like maybe he could end the fight there. It just showed the levels of how good Usman consistently has been, where I kind of felt like Kobe kind of looked the same. I think his striking kind of looked the same. I didn't really see much else than kind of these wild 1-2s or just a big barrage of punches coming at you, kind of trying to smother you with more of a volume than he is technically speaking. But he goes out there, and Usman keeps pushing forward, ends up getting the decision victory there. It was a close fight. I gotta say, it was a very close fight for both of these guys here. But obviously, I really had Usman going out there to get this victory. So there you have it there. Now, on the other side, you've got Jorge Masvidal, plus 260. 3 fights ago, he fought for the BMF title against Nate Diaz. Okay, this one here, I did rewatch it again. I hadn't seen it in a while, so I want to rewatch it again. And, I mean, I give credit to, Masvidal, the way that he fought. He came out there right away, threw a hard elbow, cut up Nate Diaz, then threw a head kick. Excuse me. Threw a head kick, dropped him, got on top of him, and then kind of let him back up. And pretty much, I felt it was a lot of one-way traffic, but even there was times, too, where, Nate Diaz early in the fight was kind of like walking. I mean, it is something that he kind of does, I guess, so you can't really, pick it apart. But I just didn't like it. He just almost looked unmotivated. I mean, I don't know, but Nate just kind of looked flat out there, and Masvidal looked good. I mean, he kept the pressure on, landed some big shots, kept pushing forward. Nate is a guy that obviously has the cardio, so he was able to kind of, but it's still, again, I just thought that Nate looked flat in that fight, but Masvidal looked great. He goes out there, he keeps pushing forward, he ends up getting, causing more damage. It was blood all over the place for on Nate Diaz, and ends up being the doctor stoppage in that third round. So he gets the, Jorge Masvidal gets the victory, and he's the BMF champion. And then 2 fights ago, he fought Kamaru Usman. Now, this was the fight here where they fought for the first time, and short notice, and all these things were kind of going on, and could he last, and all these other things. And again, another bad blood fight between these guys. And this spot here, it was just a ragdoll city. I mean, it was where Usman took him down. I think it was 5 times he took him down, kept good positioning, kept working. There wasn't much that Masvidal really did as offer up as offense. And again, it was short notice. You can kind of take that with a grain of salt, but Usman did what he needed to do. He goes out there and gets a sweeping decision victory. I believe he won every round. So Masvidal loses that fight. And then most recently, part 2, Usman versus Masvidal. And this was one here that really, again, it shows how Usman is evolving. I mean, everyone's so worried about his stamina and the takedowns and the top control and the heavy top control and all these things, and then all of a sudden now this guy's putting together these knockouts. But he goes out there in this fight here, and early it was kind of a back and forth, and and both guys were kind of grappling a little bit. Masvidal got taken down, and the one thing there, Masvidal looked good, able to kind of pop back up. But going into that second round, he throws the big bomb, and even Masvidal talked about it too. He said, you know what, I was ready to wrestle for 5 rounds, and he throws a beautiful straight, drops him, fight over, that's it. And I think that took a lot of steam away from Masvidal overall, kind of the perception of him. So there you have it there. He goes out there, and Usman knocks out Masvidal in the second round. So with that being said, now the first thing here, obviously, we need to talk about here is Covington. I mean, you've got his elite level wrestling. I mean, obviously, that's a top part of this. Top-notch cardio as well. He's able to keep the good volume, push forward. He's a pressure fighter. He's looking to kind of melt you with that volume and just keep pushing forward. On the other side, you've got Masvidal, he is well-rounded, fantastic boxing, and I don't think he gets enough credit for how good his boxing really is, but fantastic boxing. He can mix it up with some of the kicks, good body kick that he throws a lot out there, versatile striking overall, and he's well-rounded. He's a tough guy, but he's well-rounded. It's not that he's just a striker. He can really do it all, and he's intelligent when he's in there. He definitely does things where he's more strategic than kind of wildly throwing together strikes. But the first thing here, I think is this fight's gonna be closer than people think. And I know that a lot of people are talking about this, wet blanket. Is he gonna wet blanket him? That's obviously the biggest piece of this. Is Covington gonna be able to take Masvidal down, keep him there, dictate the pace, work from top position, and either get the finish, submission, win the rounds, whatever it may be. And a lot of people are talking about that. Now, for me, I don't believe that. I really don't believe that Covington is just going to take him down over and over and over and over and keep him there. I think the first thing, that it's the bigger cage. And I think that will help Masvidal kind of have some space, move around a little bit, work his striking. And again, he's really got some nice striking. And again, Covington, who I just don't see the elevation in his striking, maybe it's there, and maybe we will see it Saturday night, but I think it's been kind of stagnant, where you've got Masvidal, who absolutely will win on the feet. I think that's going to be somebody who can have better volume. Again, cage is going to help. I think that you've seen Colby kind of shoot these takedowns from distance there. I think he's going to struggle a little bit. Masvidal moves around the cage a lot too, so I think it's going to be difficult for him to just kind of grab him, take him down, or pin Masvidal up against the fence. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be consistent. I think it's going to be there, and I think Covington's absolutely going to get some takedowns. But also, we've seen Masvidal get up. We've seen him, being able to kind of scramble, move around, defend submissions, and really be able to kind of transition his way out of these ground situations. And even against Usman, which I thought was a really telling sign, was against Usman, that first round, although he got knocked out in the second round, but that first round, he was in a bad spot. I mean, he was center of the cage, really no way of him getting up, and you've got Usman on top of you, throwing these, he has the long arms, he's got some great ground and pound, he's a strong guy, he's big, and Masvidal was able to get up. So again, I think that's going to be able to happen for Masvidal over the rounds, is be able to kind of just keep the striking, keep some distance, as well as the fact that Masvidal has a 75% takedown defense rate. So he is definitely knowledgeable and well capable of stuffing these. Now again, Colby may just fire and fire and fire. Who knows how that's going to pan out. But I think Masvidal is not getting enough credit. I think the perception of him from his fight prior against Usman, where he got completely knocked out, people are kind of really just shelving Masvidal, maybe he's getting older. But if you're losing to Usman back-to-back times, you can't really knock the guy for losing the way that he lost. So again, there's pieces in there that I think you could take away from this. But again, the scrambling ability I think is going to be important for him there, and I think he's going to be able to get up and at least fend for himself there. Let's see. So with that being said, now the big part here obviously is I like Covington. I think Covington can go out there and get this victory, but we want to get off that big minus 340, minus 350 number here. So a method of victory play here is where I'm going with here. Now, if you look at it statistically wise as well, is Covington, in general, is kind of a death by accumulation kind of guy. He's going to keep putting the volume out, pitter-patter some shots, hope that you just can't take it anymore, hope that you're just exhausted, and by exhaustion, landing some big shots and finding that finish. Now, you've got Covington. He has 11 UFC victories. In his first 5 wins, 4 were by finish. He had some submissions. I think he had some ground and pound finishes in there. So he had some finishes in there. But that since 2016, out of his last 6 wins, 5 of which came by decision. So he is, he's not the guy that's going out there and just blitzing people out. Plus, the only finish that he had was Tyron Woodley, which was in the end of the fight, and that's Tyron Woodley. No offense to the guy, former champion, but again, he's just nowhere near where he was. He's a shell of a man that he was. I think that this is a spot here where Covington is going to struggle in certain spots, but find ways to win on the scorecards here. And I think that you go Covington. I like Covington via decision, -105. I like the price there. I just don't think that he's going to... Masvidal's tough. I think he's going to last. He's going to push through some of these tough spots. He's going to defend the ground. And I think that, again, this is such a bad blood fight. I think that he's really going to dig deep. It's going to be a tough 5 rounds, but Covington will go out there and get this. So as my free play, I'm going Colby Covington to win via decision, -105. And the other free play we're going to talk about is Greg Hardy versus Sergey Spivak. And we've got Spivak is -220, and we've got Hardy is +178. Again, this is one, try to go quick here. Now both these guys are coming off losses. Most recently, you have Hardy, who got knocked out by Tuivasa. Spivak got knocked out by Tom Aspinall in the first round. Both of them were first round finishes. And I think the big thing here is, the first thing here is you've got to look at Hardy. Now, I know a lot of people just hate the guy in general, but look at that, he does have power. You know, he's shown to have some power there. He does have athleticism. You know, and it's really going to be that versus the heavy grappling approach of Spivak. And for Spivak, really the path for him is really just going to be the grappling. He's going to have to go forward. He's going to have to get into these clinching situations. He's really going to have to keep Hardy working and just get on him, have him working, stay in tight, find a way to kind of get a trip, get him down, find a level change. You know, and we've seen Hardy where when he's on his back, he really does not know what he's doing. And you've got somebody big like Spivak who probably can keep you there. So that's obviously that's going to be the path. These are both two big boys. They can throw big shots also. But I think that's going to be part of this. But I think the biggest part, really, of this is that Spivak has struggled against guys with a little bit more explosiveness. You know, we've seen him, again, obviously against Tom Aspinall, Tybura, Walt Harris, which Walt Harris, first few rounds, he can, you know, first round or so, he's got that explosiveness, but these are the kind of guys that give him a little bit more problem. We've got somebody like Spivak who's a little bit more slow, a little more plodding. He doesn't, you know, and that's a spot where I think that a guy like Hardy can land some big shots. And then he also, the fact that, which really tees this up, is that Spivak is a slow starter. He's a very slow starter. We've seen it through his career where he kind of, you know, that first round, you know, it's almost like he needs to get hit a few times to kind of get into the fight. And that, for me, here is a wide open spot early in that first round for Hardy to go for it, for Hardy to land. I mean, we've seen Spivak, you know, block punches with his face. He's the kind of guy that, Hardy lands, and he's going to put you to sleep. So that, for me, really sets up a lot of damage. And if you can't finish Spivak in the first round, I think he could land some nice shots to kind of build up damage into that second round. And I think that's going to be a big part of this. Also, again, the bigger cage. I think that's going to help Hardy move around a little bit. Not being pinned up against the fence, being able to move a little bit, utilize some of his footwork. Again, he's an athletic guy. He can move around for a big boy. And I think that that's going to help him also against that slow, plodding, moving style of Sergey as he's trying to go for those level changes, as he's trying to clinch up or get close. Hardy's going to be throwing haymakers at him, and I think that's where he can find some success there. But really, you know, and also you got to add too is the advantages that Hardy has. You know, on the ground it's going to be Spivak, but if you're talking, this is going to be a situation where both guys are going to be standing. You know, you've got the hard hitting striking of Hardy with also just that power advantage. I think just, you know, technically speaking, maybe he's better than Spivak. I just think there's a lot more that goes into it. Plus, you add in the athleticism on top of that, and you know, the fact that, you know, Spivak, you know, if he finds that chin, that could be the end of it there. So, and you also, on top of it, you've got Hardy who, working at Sanford MMA, I think that's going to help his striking as well, too, and his overall game. So, for me here, I like Greg Hardy. I think the plus money's good. I think this should be more of a pick'em fight to me, to be honest. Maybe a slight favorite for Spivak, maybe a -130 kind of line somewhere in there, because I think this could be closer to a coin flip than someone who's -220. I don't think Spivak should be that. So I do like this as another free play, another sprinkle here. Greg Hardy +178 as my other free play. And the last thing we'll talk about today is the fade of the card. And the fade of the card is Tagera Utombekov. and as long as I didn't totally screw that name up. And he's minus 260. So Tagir Ulanbekov, I really think this is just too wide of a line. I mean, you've got Tagir is minus 260. On the other side here, you've got Tim Elliott, who's plus 200. This is a fighter here that I think a lot of people are putting in parlays, a lot of people are sprinkling in, and this is a kind of situation here where I kind of call it like the Dagestani tax, where, you know, you're going to pay a premium for that Dagestani last name. You're definitely going to pay a premium. He's a part of that camp. Not one of the top guys. You know, he's got a nice record, but he's not one of these top guys there. But you're definitely going to pay a premium there. And I think that's kind of why this line is kind of eked up a little bit even more, because, to be honest with you, the most recent fight for Tagir was the biggest red flag to me, was his split decision win over Nascimento. And Nascimento came in on short notice. It was a very close fight. I don't really grade his striking that high. I think Tagir, you know, his grappling looked good, his striking looked iffy. Where you've got a guy like a vet in Tim Elliott here, who's a grinder, who's going to push forward, who's going to stay in your face, who's going to keep you working, and that could be where he could kind of smother him, kind of drown him a little bit, kind of take him out of his element there. And this is a tough test for any up-and-comer. This is really a tough test for any up-and-comer. Elliott, again, just a tough guy who's scrappy, who's going to push forward, and he's the kind of guy I think that in this situation here, he could make it dirty, he could, you know, very sloppy fight, get it into a brawl, and that's what he loves. And he's actually pretty good at kind of pushing these fights into that, because he's going for broke. He's the kind of guy, I'm going in, I'm a kill or be killed kind of fighter there. His record's not that great, but he is a tough out for anybody that's coming up here. So for me here, I think Tagir is just not worth playing. You know, there's actually a spot here, and I'm thinking about it, of actually putting something on Tim Elliott, if anything, a little sprinkle on him. But, you know, for right now here, for me, I think Tagir is an absolute fade. So for my fade of the card is Tagir Ulanbekov, minus 270. I think you should stay away. So those are my plays for UFC 272. If you want to check out my 5% best bet play, link down in the description. And let's see how we do. We've been tearing it up, and I'm ready for more. So this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.